This hearing of the Subcommittee on Conservation and Forestry, entitled Supporting Careers in Conservation, Workforce Training, Education, and Job Opportunities, will come to order. Welcome and thank you for joining today's hearing. After brief opening remarks, members will receive testimony from our witnesses today, and then the hearing will be open to questions. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to today's hearing focused on how this committee and USDA can work with partners to better build and support a pipeline for careers in the conservation space, including at NRCS. I'm looking forward to hearing from our witnesses about the work they're doing, the needs they see, and the opportunities we have to encourage careers in the conservation workforce. Our robust conservation workforce plays a critical role in helping America's growers, producers, and forest landowners implement conservation practices that not only have improved environmental outcomes, but also have improved their operations' bottom lines through increased crop quality, better yields, and other co-benefits. Since the 1930s, NRCS has provided producers with technical support and financial assistance to achieve the benefits of a healthy and productive landscape. In 2019 alone, NRCS and its partners worked with more than 500,000 producers, 500,000 producers, on more than 43 million acres to build conservation plans and implement practices that increase production, reduce input costs, conserve natural resources, and protect wildlife habitat. Together, these actions not only have a positive impact on farms, but also on their neighbors, their watersheds, and the entire US population through well-documented environmental benefits, including improved water quality through the reduction of runoff, increased resilience of the land against drought in dry years, and reduced carbon dioxide emissions in the environment through the sequestration of carbon from healthier soils. As we continue rebuilding our economy and finding solutions to the climate crisis, voluntary conservation programs can play a critical role in reducing our carbon footprint, making our food supply chains more resilient while growing our economy, especially in rural communities. But it takes a qualified workforce to make that happen. While farmers and producers stand ready to play their part in conservation, attrition in on-the-ground staff has reduced landowners' opportunities to learn from trained technical assistance providers who provide site-specific solutions to implement conservation practices effectively. Consider this: between 2004 and 2019, staffing levels at NRCS have declined 24%. Unlike many other federal agencies, nearly all NRCS staff, or 98%, are located outside of Washington, D.C. And as such, attrition in NRCS's ranks is felt disproportionately by those who are seeking to implement conservation practices on their land. Farmers are the original conservationists and play a critical role in helping to safeguard our environment. In 2018, Congress reaffirmed the importance of voluntary incentive-based conservation in the Farm Bill by maintaining robust funding in the conservation title. Moving forward, it is critical that Congress adequately fund technical assistance at NRCS to ensure the effective implementation and to maximize accountability of these voluntary programs. However, while increasing funding can help reduce attrition within the conservation workforce at NRCS, it does not reach the underlying issue of the conservation workforce shortage. Instead, I have heard directly about the fierce competition between state agencies, nonprofit technical service providers, and NRCS for the same small number of specialists in communities across my district and the country. In order to meet the needs of farmers, it is essential that we do more to attract more young Americans into this field and grow the size of this essential workforce. Today, I am excited to hear from our witnesses who are working to build this pipeline, starting from K through 12 all the way through community colleges and land-grant universities. I'm excited to hear how we can do more to retain those working in conservation already. We have seen the challenges of and the innovations sparked by a reduced workforce, and today's witnesses offer unique perspectives regarding these challenges and opportunities that will help us build a pipeline into the conservation workforce. As we look ahead to the 2023 Farm Bill, I'm excited to learn more about how we can build this pipeline by meeting people where they are and making sure they have the necessary information to consider and prepare for careers in conservation. And just yesterday, I was in my district visiting with a career and technical education program where we were honoring students who were graduating and heading off into technical careers. Throughout my district, we have programs that are starting to get set up related to conservation and agricultural related studies. And so there is this energy on the ground. I'm excited to see it in Virginia, and I look forward to learning about what's happening across the country and what we should know as we head into the 2023 Farm Bill. So with that, I would now like to welcome the distinguished gentleman, the ranking member, Mr. LaMalfa, for any opening remarks that he would like to make.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Hope you're doing well. We're out here on the West Coast where it's already getting hot. And thanks for this opportunity for having today's hearing and helping meet the goals of this issue. So we're talking about in the Farm Bill, we're going to have a heavy lift next year getting that done. So I'm glad we're getting ahead of it with hearings on many aspects. Title II of the Farm Bill provides farmers, ranchers, and landowners with a variety of programs and tools to engage in voluntary incentive-based conservation activities. Some of them work very well right here in rice country where I live. These management activities address various natural resource concerns and are really a win-win for both the producer as well as environmental needs, as the benefits to both are indeed well established. Under the 2018 Farm Bill, the conservation title provides over $6 billion in funding for these programs each year. This funding supports working lands programs such as the EQIP, the CSP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program also. Supports non-working lands such as the CRP program and the Ag Conservation and Easement Program. In my home state of California, we continue to see the value of voluntary conservation and the great need for increased land management. Conservation activities and active management directly improve water and soil quality, encourage wildlife habitat, and can help restore forest lands after wildfires, something we desperately need as the fires in this area are in the 6-digit range in acres. The Dixie Fire alone, just under 1 million last year. 1 million acres. We're far behind on this. So I hope that these programs, as well as the increased employment, can kick in and really help get us fast forward on putting these lands back to something I think the American people would like. So indeed, Wildfires of Crisis this year already, we had several fires in the open space areas just in my district last yard. Thankfully, they're not in the forest yet, but with the north wind and such, it's indeed a threat all the time. And I hold my breath as to what's coming here later this year. So we need every tool we can in order to help battle this. For example, in one of my counties, of North Siskiyou County, the Butte Valley South Joint Chiefs Landscape Restoration Partnership Project will assist private forest owners in treating acres adjoining public lands. In Modoc County, Nrcs has been removing juniper trees in a multi-year project to improve sage grouse habitat and grazing for local ranchers and post-fire. Nrcs has worked with the ranchers installing new water sources, notably in Butte County, where the Camp Fire, meaning the Paradise area, damaged what's known as the Miocene Canal. So indeed, on forest restoration or getting ahead of the curve, so we don't have such devastating fires, as I mentioned with the sage grouse situation up there, the sage grouse is any moment could be listed, which will take a lot of ability away to manage lands and for ranchers to actually do their good work in conjunction with that. So I have a lot more I could say here, but I think I would like to get started with our witnesses here. So I look forward to the discussion today and the opportunity for training the next generation of technical assistance providers is a big one. It's important that we meet the objectives of these conservation plans, and we need the people to do that. So it's the importance of indeed bringing more people into place. So I'd like to welcome all of our witnesses here today and say thank you for joining us. I'd also like to say thanks specifically to Tracy Shore, who I'll make the introduction for in a little bit, and for her for sharing her story with us. So, Madam Chair, I will yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaMalfa. The chair would request that other members submit their opening statements for the record so witnesses may begin their testimony and to ensure that there is ample time for questions. I am pleased to welcome our panel of witnesses to the Agriculture Committee today and the Subcommittee on Conservation and Forestry. Our first witness today is Mr. Michael Crowder, who is the president of the National Association of Conservation Districts. Mr. Crowder, I look forward to your first time testifying before our subcommittee. You have 5 minutes for your opening statements, and there will be a clock that appears on the screen. But in these virtual scenarios, I tend to yield towards being a bit more generous with time in case you're keeping track of your comments and not the clock. But Mr. Crowder, I open it up to you, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Spanberger. Ranking Member LaMalfa and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to join you today to discuss the challenges currently facing the conservation workforce and opportunities to address and overcome these issues. My name is Michael Crowder, and I serve as president of the National Association of Conservation Districts and have been the general manager of the Barker Ranch in Eastern Washington State for 22 years and have been a partner of my family's third generation farm in Indiana since 2002. I've also served as an adjunct professor at Washington State University Tri-Cities, where I taught graduate and undergraduate level classes in wildlife science, ecology, and wetland restoration. I've spent my entire career working on conservation, agriculture, and wildlife science issues, and I'm very proud of Barker Ranch's summer internship program, which provides real-world experience and college credit for young men and women working in conservation practices. I take a lot of pride in my efforts to prepare the next generation of conservation leaders, and I'm particularly proud to serve as NACD's president and work with local conservation districts at the local, state, tribal, and national levels. NACD represents America's 3,000 conservation districts across the nation and the 17,000 men and women who serve on their governing boards, as well as their state and territory associations. Conservation districts are local units of government that coordinate with many partners at all levels to help millions of cooperating landowners and operators implement conservation practices. Producers are on the front lines of ensuring global food security, as well as protecting our country's natural resources. Our conservation workforce plays a critical role in achieving this goal by providing producers the resources and assistance necessary to implement effective conservation practices. Nrcs works with partners such as conservation districts to implement critical USDA working lands conservation programs. These programs provide resources and support for producers to conserve the environment, protect water quality, and improve soil health. Unfortunately, only about 1/3 of USDA working lands conservation program applications are approved each year. As demand for conservation grows, resources and staff are often stretched thin, negatively affecting their ability to implement conservation programs and staff morale. NACD has asked Congress to include at least $1.2 billion for NRCS's conservation operations budget in the fiscal year 2023 spending bill. This funding would allow USDA to hire staff, better administer conservation programs, and provide critical technical assistance. However, funding alone will not resolve all the challenges facing our conservation workforce. We are not cultivating the next generation of workers at the scale required to meet our goals and keep pace with attrition. From elementary school to colleges and beyond, we need to inspire, educate, and provide more opportunities for the next generation to enter the conservation workforce. NACD is proud to be taking action to achieve this goal. Each year, NACD works closely with the National Conservation Foundation to manage Envirothon, an international competition between 25,000 high school students across the United States and Canada to find creative solutions to complex natural resource issues. NACD also partners with Ag Future of America, Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences, the NRCS, and the Forest Service to host the Sustainability Institute. This workshop provides students with important professional development opportunities and pathways to conservation careers. NACD is working closely with the NRCS to develop an education program to prepare underrepresented high school and college students for conservation careers. We also support NRCS's Pathways program, which offers internships, fellowships, and other opportunities to inspire and prepare the next generation of conservation leaders. Although NACD and other conservation advocates have taken steps to address this growing issue, we recognize that there's much more left to do. Providing additional educational opportunities, introducing students to conservation careers, bolstering training programs, and increasing compensation for conservation professionals are just some of the things we need to make progress on if we're going to tackle this challenge. I look forward to working with our partners and members of this subcommittee to support those efforts. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this hearing, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crowder. Now, our second witness today is Mr. Shane O'Neill, the Forest Industry Business Development Manager at the School of Forest Resources of the University of Maine, who is testifying on behalf of the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. And I am excited to learn more about your work regarding workforce resiliency. Mr. O'Neill, you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair Spanberger, Ranking Member LaMaffa, and members of the subcommittee, especially Maine's Representative Pringry. My name is Shane O'Neill, and I serve as the Forest Industry Business Development Manager at the University of Maine, an R1 research university, the state's Land, Sea, and Space Grant, and a proud member of the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on an issue of great importance to our state. Currently, Maine's forest products industry directly employs more than 13,000 people, but the nature of our industry and the jobs it supports is rapidly changing. And so too must our strategies for developing our future and incumbent workforce. Public perceptions and attitudes demonstrate a disconnect from the reality of modern forestry. Many people view forest management, harvesting, and products manufacture as ecologically detrimental and requiring low-tech, high-exertion labor. In reality, the engine of the modern forest economy is knowledge and innovation. How we manage our forest resources and extend their product applications will require new practices, techniques, and be technology-driven. Accelerating innovation in forest products and training a skilled workforce which meets the current and emerging needs of these new products and practices is key to meeting the increasing global demand for low carbon materials, chemicals, and fuels that can come from our forests. To build from our transitional assets and strengths and strategically transition to an entire forest products sector for local sustainability and global growth, in 2016, a unique cross-sector collaboration called Forest Opportunity Roadmap Maine, known as FOR-Maine, was initiated between industry, communities, government, education, and nonprofits with the support from the U.S. Economic Development Administration and our Maine congressional delegation. Not surprising, preparing the workforce for the future forest products economy is one of the primary goals identified by FOR-Maine. As the largest generator of graduates in the state, the university can directly impact the size and skill of the sector's workforce. To inform how we specifically do this, I joined with university colleagues in developing the first of its kind forest industry workforce development strategy for our state. Our research determined that by 2035, 37% of Maine's current workforce in the forest economy, 5,000 people, will be at or beyond retirement age. Furthermore, as we transition to newer emerging technologies, we will require an additional 2,600 positions. In a separate UMaine study, surveyed forest products firms noted a strong need for employee soft skills along with communication, data-based decision-making, and digital skills. Professional development strategies must include both the technical and soft skills. To meet this need, our report recommends the development of workforce pipelines through 6 strategic actions, many of which may be relevant to your own districts and states for this and other traditional industries. These actions are detailed in my written testimony and linked report, but I would like to highlight a few key points, including implementing a coordinated marketing and branding campaign showcasing career opportunities in the sector to counter public misperceptions, fostering greater education, outreach, and awareness of forest sector opportunities with secondary school students, career changers, and underrepresented populations, and working with rural communities on placemaking to support workforce attraction and retention. To advance these actions and further scale and accelerate the 4 Maine efforts, UMaine is currently leading our coalition in pursuing EDA Build Back Better Regional Challenge funding to develop a Northern Forest bioeconomy cluster, and recently submitted our Phase 2 proposal. Our work and the workforce we are developing together has never been more essential to Maine and applicable to our nation's ability to sustainably manage and utilize our forest resources, mitigate forest fire risks and invasives, sequester carbon, improve air, water, and habitat, and protect the economic foundation and identity of many of our rural communities. In closing, I'd like to again thank the committee and APLU for this opportunity to speak today and for your interest and support of our nation's forests and dependent citizens and communities. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next witness is Mr. Keith Olander, who's the Dean of Agriculture Studies at Central Lakes College in Staples, Minnesota. Mr. Olander, you are an innovator in this space, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear from you today. And I now recognize you for 5 minutes.
Chair Spanberger, Ranking Member LaMalfa, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to share my passion for agriculture. And I'm going to share a few of the practices we're employing to support workforce development and employee retention specific to Natural Resource Conservation Service, or NRCS. For context, I grew up on a farm and continue to farm today. I'm an agriculture education educator of 28 years with experience in high school, community college faculty, and now as program administrator. I live my life in and around agriculture and developed a passion for workforce development to make our youth aware of the opportunities that await them in agriculture, food, and natural resources, or AF&R. Furthermore, the work continues in connecting secondary, post-secondary, and industry partners. And our work focuses around streamlining these career pathways that minimizes barriers for our youth to gain successful careers in AF&R. Now, specific to the relationship that we have between Central Lakes College and Natural Resource Conservation Service, there's some specific practices I'll go over, and I'm going to cover 3 of them and try to break them out a little bit in organization for you. First of all, we're enhancing college curriculum to better align the Natural Resource Program outcomes with the NRCS employee qualifications. And really, this is for on-farm production knowledge. The coursework focuses on partnering concepts in natural resource management and agronomic practices on the farm in a way to develop a student skill set that can assist farmers in problem-solving challenges for farmers who desire to do both improve environmental impacts and maintain economic viability. Second, we are providing an internship program that is a direct hire approach of community college students directly to NRCS, and that experiences include exposure to a broad array of NRCS employee opportunities, collaborating with college faculty to assure a superior college education experience. And third, the one I'm going to spend just a few minutes on, is the practice where we provide professional development for early career NRCS employees that is immersive in design. This supports employees connecting with farmers and improving job retention. Early results indicate that we have a low confidence level in communicating with farmers about their particular operations simply due to a lack of farm literacy. All of these trainings take place on a 2,000-acre farm complex at Central Lakes College Ag and Energy Research Center. The employees experience over 30 hours of on-farm experience that include these particular pieces. Number 1, tillage practices, tools, equipment, and technology. The employees are driving tillage machines with current technology to learn a farmer view of things like carbon sequestration as it relates to things like reduced tillage concepts. Second, planting operations and technology. They're describing, setting, and operating planters that are employed with GIS guidance, precision seed placement, and variable rate technology to better align the farmer profitability with environmental enhancements. Third, they experience crop harvest operations and data output. Operating harvest equipment to view and understand the yield mapping technologies that produce yield maps, which supports the NRCS employees' ability to match field production capacity and environmental outcomes to find precision site-based solutions to enhance the farm's ability in improving soil health and water quality. And the fourth component of this particular immersive training is soil health, cover crops, and livestock grazing. So this component is the idea that we educate the cover crop varieties through identification and potential adoption of species. Additionally, we have plots in place where we're able to take the employees out to places where they're planted within row crops, variable row width scenarios, and different planting times to ascertain the best outcomes for both the agronomic crop and the cover crop success. And then finally, we demonstrate grazing of cover crops that we have created an initial set of data, economic data, with the outcomes pairing row crop production with cover crops and livestock grazing into our system. And that was a desired outcome of the state leadership of NRCS. So as we look to all three of these particular practices, the curriculum changes, the internships, and the professional development have had a positive impact according to our pre and post surveys. This includes feedback from the students in the course, the interns, and the employees that participate in the trainings. Our goal is to expand this program with NRCS, and we hope to see the option for their staff to learn and grow their professional setting to strengthen the agency overall. I'm also aware that through our partnerships with other community colleges in other states, like the community college, the C2A3 Alliance, that there is interest in replicating elements of our work in their regions to serve students better and support NRCS and its mission. Currently, this type of partnership across the country is in its infancy. Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity that I've had to share comments and look forward to answering questions.
Thank you very much. Our fourth witness today is Dr. Margaret Holzer, who is a member of the K-12 Committee of the Soil Science Society of America. Dr. Holzer, as an experienced educator, you have so much to offer regarding this topic, and I thank you for being here. I now recognize you for 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Spanberger and Ranking Member LaMalfa and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Dr. Margaret Holzer, and I serve on the Soil Science Society of America's K-12 Committee. The Soil Science Society of America is an international scientific society that fosters the transfer of knowledge and practices to sustain global soils. We're based in Madison, Wisconsin, and founded in 1936. We're a professional home to over 6,000 members and over 800 certified professionals dedicated to advancing the field of soil science. Our committee, our organization is dedicated to making soil science a dinner table topic in every household. For more than 16 years, our K-12 committee has been in the front line designing instructional resources, providing professional development for teachers, and supporting soil scientists as they provide K-12 outreach. Through my professional affiliations, I was asked to serve on this committee in 2006. Excitedly said yes, given my passion for soil science, and I've served on it ever since. The charge of our committee is to increase interest and awareness in soil science as a scientific pursuit and career choice, especially among K-12 teachers and their students, and to work to integrate more information on soil science into biology, chemistry, physics, and earth science areas taught at multiple grade levels. Please see the appendix of my written testimony for detailed description of these activities, many of which the NRCS funding assisted us in developing. As impressive as our work is, there are challenges to overcome in building awareness of soil science and conservation and the career possibilities in each. I personally love soil science and connecting my students with the role soils play in every aspect of their lives. But how do we engage classrooms located where the landscape includes lawns, asphalt, concrete, and their agricultural products come in little cellophane-covered trays? Here are 4 challenges and potential solutions to consider when designing solutions for our workforce needs. Earth and space science courses are on equal footing with life science and physical sciences through middle school grades. However, high school students have limited access to full-year high school level earth science courses, where soil science and conservation are key topics within those courses. The solution to this challenge is for school districts across the country to reconsider their high school science course sequence. This is key, especially for districts where the local landscape includes lawns, asphalt, and concrete. For many teachers who would like to include soil science in their curriculums, there's a challenge in accessing outdoor spaces and laboratory materials needed to run basic soil laboratories in their classrooms. Our K-12 committee efforts have most certainly played a role in the needed effort and support, but those state and local entities that can share their expertise, provide access to soil samples, basic laboratory supplies, their efforts are welcome too. County extension offices might consider an awareness campaign to alert schools to the resources they may have to offer. If high school coursework is limited to soil science and conservation, a workaround is to engage students in events that are extensions of the classroom. A few were already mentioned, but I'll reiterate. For example, the competitive World Food Prize Global Youth Institute is a phenomenal opportunity for students from around the world and outside our country to discuss solutions for food security issues and learn about extensive opportunities and careers available in agriculture. Another impactful program is the national competition called Envirothon, which has 5 topic areas, of which soils and land use is one. Students participating in this competition learn about available careers while working directly with real issues that are meaningful to their lives. In each of these competitions, mentors support students and are role models that could influence the career choices of their mentees. Ongoing funding of these programs such as these, as well as Future Farmers of America and 4-H, will ensure that our students are engaging with soils and our environment. And finally, if students are unaware that they could major in soil science or it's buried in another major, they're going to be unaware of career choices they might have. They're not going to choose go to a college that has soil science as a major. Solutions that may encourage additional majors in soil science from a secondary level are strategic marketing of higher education soil science and conservation programs, connecting soil science professionals with high school students, support for dual credit programs that provide high school students with college level soil science and conservation courses and the college credit that goes with them, and provide high school students with internships in conservation fields. These solutions could work for students who live in rural, suburban, and urban regions of our country. However, the key is that we're going to need a portfolio, identify a portfolio of solutions that is difficult to clearly identify what connects a student to college and career. We on the Soil Science Society Committee are committed to finding and supporting the items found in a portfolio of solutions to help build that pipeline of our next generation of soil science and conservation careers and stewards of our natural environment. We love soils and we want others to love it too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Our 5th witness today is Ms. Marissa Jensen, the Education and Outreach Program Manager at Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Ms. Jensen, you bring a unique perspective to this hearing, and I recognize you now for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Spanberger, Ranking Member LaMalfa, and members of the Conservation and Forestry Subcommittee. I'm the Education and Outreach Conservation Leadership Program Manager with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever based in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm here today representing 750 community-based Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever chapters and 400,000 members, volunteers, and supporters who work every day to promote and implement conservation and outdoor-related programs. Additionally, I'm here representing over 400 of my colleagues, many of who deliver boots-on-the-ground conservation on private and public lands. As one of the nation's largest employers of conservation professionals, we know firsthand the importance of developing and recruiting the next generation. Our organization's mission goals are made possible through partnerships and funding from our chapters and volunteers, Nrcs conservation technical assistance, and Farm Bill conservation programs, in addition to funding and programs administered by the Farm Service Agency, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, state wildlife agencies, and many more. Since the inception of our Farm Bill Biologist program in South Dakota in 2003, we've leveraged funding and impacted over 22 million acres in 40 states. This broad team of partners delivers federal and state voluntary conservation practices at the community level, much of which comes from Title II Farm Bill conservation programs. I'm thrilled to be here representing our efforts to reach future conservation professionals. I personally began my education and career in the veterinary field. However, I found my true calling in wildlife biology and eventually my journey with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever 4 years ago. I live in Omaha, Nebraska with my son and 2 bird dogs. And although my connection to the outdoors was strong as a child, I did not grow up in a family of hunters and was not interested in hunting for most of my life. Once I learned about a hunter's role in conservation, coupled with my love for the outdoors and the ability to connect all of this to food, I went on my first hunt at the age of 30 and I haven't looked back since. Today, I would like to share what we are doing for the future of conservation professionals. In 2006, our organization began providing education for high school students through our National Youth Leadership Council. This group of 25 students from across the country have served as leaders within their age group by providing inspiration, education, and advocacy for our organization's mission. Many of these students have since chosen a career in conservation or agriculture and have become leaders among their peers in college and careers. Through our National Youth Leadership Council and our organization's commitment to developing conservation professionals, we evaluated our efforts to grow this program. Now, building on past success, we are expanding and transitioning our National Youth Leadership Council into a new program that'll reach hundreds of students, Journey to Conservation Careers. This exciting new program is currently in its pilot phase and is aimed at reaching a larger, more diverse audience of students who might not be familiar with what conservation career opportunities even exist. Our organization, like many other sectors, is recognizing a downward trend of resumes and applications for open positions. To address this concern and elevate our efforts, we've partnered with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to recruit the next generation of leaders through this unique and dynamic program. We recognize the importance of meeting students where they're at to help break down barriers in participation and work toward building an inclusive community and workforce. To do this, we've developed a self-paced online certificate program with Bellevue University in Nebraska. As part of the course, students will have the opportunity to directly connect with conservation professionals and gain hands-on experience through job shadowing. Earlier this year, we hosted our first Conservation College and virtual career fair. With minimal promotion and effort, the event had over 160 registrations representing participants across 34 states with requests for a repeat event. Journey to Conservation Careers will offer scholarship opportunities to help break down barriers in participation and reach historically underrepresented communities. We'll do this by working with high schools, environmental education associations through marketing efforts and help from our partners. I need to emphasize that the success of these programs and efforts would not be possible without the numerous partnerships that we have with the governmental and non-governmental entities. We're stronger together, and these programs and practices emphasize the effectiveness of a partnership model. We also must have sound conservation policies, science, and adequate support to ensure that conservation programs are effectively and efficiently implemented. Finally, we recognize the importance of providing resources and guidance for the next generation. Journey to Conservation Careers can do just that by delivering tools to meet students where they're at. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you so very much. And at this time, I will yield to Ranking Member LaMalfa to introduce our sixth and final witness.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. As I mentioned, Tracy Shore is someone I've known for many years, her and her family here in the same county I live in here in Northern California. She is currently on the University of California Cooperative Extension with the Livestock and Natural Resources Advisor, as an advisor for the Butte, Plumas, and Sierra counties here in Northern California. In this role, she provides conservation technical support to ranchers, land managers, and agencies regarding livestock production and conservation. Tracy conducts research in the region focused on irrigated pasture, invasive species, predators, and mountain meadows. Recent catastrophic fires, the Camp Fire 2018, Walker Fire 2019, North Complex Fire 2020, Dixie Fire 2021, have led her to work with producers on disaster preparedness, livestock shelter management, and research on fire implications to natural resources. Tracy is also a managing partner in her family's ranch, the Shore Ranch, a multi-generational farm which raises rice, walnuts, registered Hereford cattle, and commercial cattle. She has a master's degree in horticulture and agronomy from University of California, Davis, and a Bachelor of Science from California State University at Chico. So with that, Tracy, take it away. Thanks for joining us today. I yield back, Madam Chairman.
Ms. Shore, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you all. And good afternoon, Chair Spanberger and Ranking Member LaMalfa and members of the subcommittee. And thank you for hosting this hearing, recognizing the importance of supporting careers in conservation. My name is Tracy Shore, and I'm excited to be here in 3 capacities. As Representative LaMalfa said, I am a University of California Cooperative Extension, Livestock and Natural Resources Advisor, serving in 3 counties, Plumas, Butte, and Sierra, which is within the 1st Congressional District in California. In this position, I conduct research and bring science-based information into the hands of ranchers, land managers, and community members. Secondly, I'm a managing partner of Shore Ranch, a 5th-generation family farm that grows rice, walnuts, raises cattle. And lastly, and most importantly, I am a product of career technical education. I grew up as an active member in the West Gridley 4-H Club and Gridley FFA. Mr. Dillabo and Mr. Risso's high school agricultural classes gave me the foundation for my career. After attending Chico State, I worked in the policy arena building bridges between the environmental community and ranchers. This inspiring work led me back to UC Davis to earn a master's degree so that I could offer greater help to farmers, ranchers, and land managers to meet contemporary and emerging issues. Congress needs to support programs that train the workforce for exciting careers in conservation. How can this be accomplished? One is to make investment where it counts. Examples that I am passionate about include 4-H youth development that was created by the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 as part of the federal state local partnership in the land-grant university system. 4-H youth development is in both urban and rural areas, bringing hands-on experiential learning in areas such as agriculture, STEM, robotics, computer coding, and natural resources management. 4-H members build confidence and leadership skills and are exposed to a variety of potential careers. Another is the National FFA Program, federally funded under Carl D. Perkins' Vocational and Technical Education Act. FFA programs across the nation are training the future workforce in every spectrum of careers in sustainable agriculture. Data science, resource conservation, forest health, while building professional skills such as public speaking, critical thinking, and research. These two programs expose youth of all backgrounds and ethnicities to the breadth of careers in conservation. And number two, Congress needs to support continued investments in research and extension funding. I am proud to be an extension agent, continuing a 130-year tradition of conducting research and outreach important to local communities at the intersection of long-term agricultural sustainability and public good benefits, such as clean water, healthy soils, working landscapes, and wildlife conservation. As an extension advisor, I help ranchers overcome challenges they face, such as animal health, irrigated pasture, predators, regulatory compliance, applying for federal Farm Bill programs, and managing landscapes in the aftermath of the Camp Fire, North Complex Fire, and Dixie fires. An example is personally leading the first study on water quality post-Camp Fire that informed downstream ranchers that water flowing through their private rangelands was safe for cattle to drink. And in the picture behind me here today is on that working ranch where one of those research sites took place. And for 3 generations, my grandfather, dad, and brother have called on our local extension agents for advice on rice diseases, water management, and invasive weeds to improve our family farm. We even lend our fields to UC for research trials where the results help our entire industry, the environment, and improves the sushi rice you eat. Extension provides critical people power, research talent, and enables states to connect the power of the local university with people on the ground. Together, we must train and educate a workforce that is adapting to our changing environment, weeds, pests, drought, and the aftermath of catastrophic fires. We must train on the evolution of land management, including the need to actively manage our forests, recognizing livestock grazing can be a sustainable land management tool, and look at agriculture as a solution, not the problem. In closing, the demand for future job opportunities in conservation are endless. As the committee writes the next Farm Bill, I encourage you to invest in training for more practitioners like myself, who work hand in hand with farmers, ranchers, and natural resource managers to make conservation happen while supporting healthy landscapes, protecting watersheds, and enhancing profitable agricultural businesses. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify before the committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so very much for your opening statements. Thank you for your testimony. So at this time, we'll go into member questions. Members will be recognized for questions in the order of seniority, alternating between majority and minority members. You will be recognized for 5 minutes each in order to allow us to get in as many questions as possible. Please keep your microphones muted until you are recognized in order to minimize background noise. And I'll begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. So I just want to say thank you again to our witnesses for being here. I have so many questions I would love to ask. But Dr. Holzer, I would like to begin with you. I have 3 children in K through 12 who have a real interest and curiosity in natural spaces and in the land around them. And so I found your testimony to be particularly interesting in the long range planning. How might partnerships with Nrcs or state agencies and public land grant universities help bolster the curriculum that you discussed in your testimony, especially as we look towards career development later in a child's educational career? And how can we ensure that educators that they have the tools to ensure that students understand the litany of prospective jobs that are available to them into their future, be it, just a few years away or for some, a decade or more.
Thank you very much for that question, Chairwoman Spanberger. Fabulous question. And my initial thought is communication. I think what needs to happen is that the K-12 audience needs to know that what's available, what's out there. You don't know what you don't know. And if a teacher has made their way into the classroom without having any kind of experience in any of the fields that we discussed today, and I was just so inspired by all the speakers, if they don't know that, how are they going to introduce it to our children? They might have a curricula that introduces it to them. There might be a module or something, but I'm wondering if locally that there can be some forms of communication between entities, between the school districts and the extension offices. I know we have a soil conservation district in our state, and I used to tap them immediately and get soil conservation books. Before you can get everything online, I would have them come visit my students. They have this beautiful model and these wonderful books where students can identify the soil that's in their backyard. But I knew to do that. And if a teacher doesn't know to do that, so outreach is the key. One of the things that we're doing right now with the support of NRCS is we're developing a model for soil scientists to use to do outreach. And we are visiting Tennessee first in Memphis, a location in Memphis, and we're going to give it a dry run. And then over the summer, we're going to iterate on the success of that. We have an evaluator that's looking at our program, and we're going to do it again in Chicago. Totally different entities in which we're running it. And then after that, we're going to be coming out with this model of professional development, full day professional development for teachers. Everything is going to be ready for them. We'll have slide decks, we'll have activities, everything that they would possibly need. That's one small piece, but I know my friends and colleagues that are on this call today, they may have other ways of sneaking into that K-12 pathway. Maybe it's through their kids, maybe it's through just celebrating what they do to the greater audience.
So Dr. Holzer, I'm going to follow up with you with questions for the record, so written questions. I think you mentioned a variety of different resources in your opening testimony, but I just even be able to provide back to my local community, I'd be interested in if there's any other organizations that some of our school districts could be looking to for advice. I'm intensely interested in this question, but I'm going to try to move on to one more kind of tangentially related. And Mr. Crowder or Ms. Jensen, I'll point this one over to you. What more do you think that NRCS could be doing to leverage the work of outside organizations that outside organizations are already doing to create a pipeline?
Chair Spanberger, one of the important things that I would always come back to is making sure that the Conservation Operations Fund is there. All the conservation technical assistance comes through that. So much of NRCS staff programs come through that. As you know, all of the conservation agricultural programs, they're funded. All that work is funded through CTA right up until the Farm Bill programs are there. So not all of NACD's work, but a lot of our partnerships with NRCS come from that Conservation Operations Fund. So it's vitally important that we get that.
Thank you very much. And in my remaining 19 seconds, I'm going to go to Mr. O'Neill. Would you have any other comments related to K through 12 education?
Thank you for the question, Representative Spanberger. One of the big things for K-12 is, really targeting kids and before they start setting their career pathways. One of the areas that we're really targeting is the middle school era, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, where they're mature enough to be thinking about their future, but they're still early enough on before they set their pathways going into high school. So really targeting the outreach into the guidance counselors, especially because guidance counselors in the middle school era are typically much more hands-on with the kids and much more in that developmental stage, much more engaging, as opposed to in high school where it's not the same level of engagement with the student. And so really inspiring young people in that middle school era to be, interested in forest-based careers, and whether that be in the wood side of it, in the utilization side of it, in the conservation components of it, but just to be interested in it.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. And I am now going to recognize Mr. LaMalfa for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I want to come back to Tracy Shore here once again. Let's talk a little bit about the issues of fire emergencies, especially in our forested areas that we've seen some really devastating effects on, one particular cattle ranch right here in Butte County. And, we know that story extremely well locally here with the Mount Lost up in the foothills above Orville area, Tracy. And this year we already have the National Interagency Fire Center has reported 1.7 million acres having burned in the West already. And so there'll be much recovery work involved with that, with the previous fires that we listed a little while ago. So what would you emphasize a little bit more on fire work that you've done, whether it's during a fire or fire emergency, and certainly the post-fire recovery that's so important as we drive around Northern California and see mile after mile of blackened, dead trees and what used to be mountainous forests. Will look like high elevation rolling hills once those trees all either topple by themselves as they tend to on federal lands, or maybe the work can get done. So would you talk a little bit more, please, about that fire emergency and post-fire recovery work, and why more people in this field, especially with the challenges we have with numbers of personnel, why would that be important?
Yeah, Doug. So I think numbers are a big one, number of people, but also the funds and the flexibility. And so during disasters, I've been called on by emergency services personnel, specifically in Plumas County by the Sheriff's Department, to help evacuate cattle. Having those relationships within my community, being able to get cattle out of the fire's path. During the Dixie Fire, I spent, I think, 3 weeks with Incident Command, serving as a liaison to make sure agricultural producers can continue their operations behind fire lines, evacuate cattle, treat them, and also continue business operations, shipping them as part of their marketing and production strategies. Getting on to the ground side of it on natural resources, during the Camp Fire, Cooperative Extension and myself and some colleagues were able to initiate rapid response. I mentioned the water quality study. We also had a forage study looking at the ash that was falling on the forage. Was it safe for livestock to eat? And we were able to get answers in the hands of producers right away and let them know that we didn't find anything, working with Department of Food and Ag in our laboratory on campus at UC Davis. During the fires, I have gone out multiple times with colleagues to be on the ground as the flames were still burning around us, to work with producers on how to restore their meadow after a dozer line, to fix it for reseeding, to relay the sod, to prevent erosion before the first rains came. And so I think the key message that I would have, and it really goes back to a seminar we had 2 weeks ago on post-wildfire, working with colleagues at community colleges and our local RCDs and the Forest Service. The message that came across is, after a fire, we must act now. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. For example, replanting success really happens in the first year. We know that meadows have to be fixed right away before the first rains. And we can't wait for funding to come months down the road. And so I think that's important, is for NRCS to be able to join hand in hand with resource conservation districts and cooperative extension to get practices on the ground during these disasters to help mitigate long ongoing concerns, but also for Farm Service Agency to be able to get funds and relief in producers' hands that have been impacted by the fire to continue business continuity. Because we know these disasters take not only an ecological toll, a financial toll, but an emotional toll on the ranchers and farmers that are in their path.
Tracy, let's talk a little bit about, I imagine, as the ones you just mentioned, they have a pretty good working relationship But don't they run into a wall with trying to get this work done when you're talking about people that are neighboring federal lands, for example? How is the relationship with federal lands on accomplishing things in a landscape format that actually does some good? You know, if people are doing it on their private land, but the Forest Service is moving sloth-like on theirs, how does that play out?
I think they're moving sloth-like because there is not enough of them. And I think the challenges that they're facing, so we are able to get action done on the ground, private lands really quick. But if we could have more resource and expertise and skilled workforce and more hands or boots on the ground, could really help us improve our forest after the catastrophic fires that we faced.
Good. Okay, let's get more personnel. We're certainly working on the pay scale side of things to try and be more attractive there as well. So Tracy Shore, thank you very much. And Madam Chair, I will yield back.
All right. The chair now recognizes Ms. Pingree for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm very pleased to have this hearing today, and thank you for holding it. And we're so happy to have our colleague in Maine, Mr. O'Neill, here to talk to us. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for the beautiful picture of the Maine forest behind you. Some people don't know that Maine is a 90% forested state, so these issues are critical to us, and you did a really good job of outlining that. A couple of things I'd love to hear you talk more about. One thing, just briefly, the EDA grant that Maine got to start the Forest Opportunity Roadmap, I think, has been really critical, and you kind of laid that out for our state being able to project the enormous transition going on in the forest products industry, what the future looks like. And the topic you're talking about today is really how to predict our workforce. And I just say to my colleagues, that's not necessarily the topic of this hearing, but just to have that ability in the state, or to have federal support for states that want to do that without these projections, I think it leaves us much more vulnerable. But if you want to talk a little bit about how you've been doing these productions, it also, by the way, created your position, which is, I think, particularly good because having you there, helps us a lot. But you talked about some of the challenges in workforce recruitment. And one of them you mentioned was placemaking. Again, we don't often talk about that, but because we're often talking about people coming or living in rural communities where I'm sure, like Maine, there's huge housing shortages. Sometimes the local hospital's a long ways away. Those seem to be barriers at times to recruitment, particularly for the higher tech jobs you're talking about that are, sort of the industries of the future. So I've already talked too much. I'll let you go forth.
Thank you very much, Representative Pingree. Definitely one of the big challenges about, attracting people to work within a sector or within a location is not only just the jobs, but the components around that job, the community that you're coming into, the services that are available. People don't necessarily want to just live in a bubble where they just go to work and they come home. There's all the other things, like you had mentioned, that housing is affordable, that broadband access, just to be in touch with family and friends around, the world. The access to healthcare, that's good quality healthcare, the ability to move freely. These are all things that people look for in communities. What is the community itself like? And so one of the things with this EDA funding that we received through 2016 in the 4 Maine construction was this community building component, where we're working directly with municipalities and communities on positioning themselves to be attractive, not only for business attraction and development, but also for the citizens within their communities to retain those workforce, current and future. If you don't have amenities in your community, it's very tough to keep people in that community. And so setting that placemaking aspect of it is critically important. It's not like in the old days where if there's a job, people are going to show up. You need all that other stuff along with it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. And I know we can't fix all of those things with this committee, but certainly for the Agriculture Committee, broadband has been one of our big considerations moving forward. I don't have a lot of time, but let me do a couple quick things here. So, Mr. Olander, I won't get a chance to ask you a question, but I just wanted to say I really appreciated your testimony, because I think one of the things we hear often about is that people who work in some of the Nrcs and other agencies often don't have this background in the future of agriculture. So for you to talk about, training young people at a community college in, tillage methods and the value of cover crops so they can see it firsthand, I think it is really valuable. And I want you to know this is from Staples, Minnesota. And even though I'm a hardcore Mainer, I spent a lot of my summers in Brainerd. So not too far away, or near Brainerd, one of those many beautiful lakes in Minnesota. And Dr. Holzer, I'm not going to get a chance to ask you a question either, but I just also want to say I really appreciated your testimony. I think it was very comprehensive. I'm a certified soil geek myself. So I think it's just so critically important we approach this from that perspective. And also, I have a background in environmental sciences, and I think often we don't teach people anything about the soil when we're teaching them about, weather patterns in the ocean and all kinds of other things related to the environment. So I really think that's so important that you and others on this panel are promoting that and how we get that into earlier and earlier grades in school. So kids who are desperately interested to learn more about climate change and about the environment understand the really important role of agriculture. So I will yield back the time I don't have. And thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to all of the panelists. You are all great.
Thank you, Ms. Pingree. The chair now recognizes Representative Moore for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate everyone having this committee and obviously attendance and our witnesses. And so I want to lead out with a question for Ms. Jensen. You mentioned earlier in your testimony the importance of partnerships with both government and non-government entities. What kinds of new partnerships do you envision?
Mr. Moore, we're losing our ability to hear you.
I apologize, Madam Chair. The weather's really bad here. Can you hear me now, okay?
Mr. Moore, if you want to try and chair a decision here, if you want to try and turn off your camera and hold it to your ear, if that might help us hear you better, I think that would be acceptable in these circumstances. We've already seen you on camera.
Okay, is that any better?
That is better.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear it. Sorry about that. We have some bad weather in Alabama today. It's kind of thunderstorms moving through, so we can hear okay sometimes we can't. So Madam Chair, I have a question for Ms. Jensen. She mentioned earlier in her testimony the importance of partnerships with both government and non-governmental entities. What kinds of new partnerships do you envision, and with who, and how might they help to support careers in conservation?
Thank you, Representative Moore. That's a wonderful question. Our organization, as I mentioned in my testimony, just knows firsthand the power of partnership. Simply put, we couldn't do what we do without the help from all the incredible partners that we have. And so, we really want to look towards the future, and we're excited for the future to welcome anyone and everyone who wants to be a part of this program, because we know that we can make a much larger impact the more help that we get. So, anyone that's interested, we would love to hear more from you. And, my contact information is in my written testimony, and I'd love to have the opportunity to discuss this further with others. And as far as your question as it relates to, what that might look like, as we continue to grow this curriculum, we continue to grow resource professionals that we can connect with for job shadowing opportunities and to serve as conservation leaders for these kids. The more individuals that we partner with, the larger reach that we have. So we really are excited for that opportunity in the future.
Okay, thank you. And let me say, Madam Chair, also, as a graduate of a land-grant university, we sure appreciate folks working with land-grant universities. And my background is actually science in this part of the world, but we do some environmental remediation projects. So we're always open to anything we can do to help train the future workforce to come in. And so we're going to continue to do that. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm going to yield back just because the weather is something crazy out here. And so thank you all so much for participating. And with that, I'll yield back.
Mr. Moore, please stay safe. Thank you for joining us, and certainly thank you for bringing your perspective to the hearing and the committee. The chair now recognizes Ms. Schreier for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you for holding this hearing. This is a really vital issue in my district. I also want to thank all of our witnesses and give an especially warm welcome to my fellow Washingtonian, Mr. Michael Crowder, who I'll have some questions for in a minute. Michael is just such a smart, trusted leader in our state and in my office on conservation issues, and frankly, trusted throughout the country. So I'm really glad to see him here today. As mentioned, this is an incredibly important topic. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with farmers and forest landowners in my district about the need to increase the capacity for on-the-ground technical assistance in order to meet the demand for conservation work. And I just want to highlight that part again and put added emphasis that demand far, far outstrips capacity for conservation programs. Our farm owners and our landowners are responsible stewards of the land, and they want to participate in federal and state programs, and they just need help to do it. I got some great feedback from Pierce County Conservation District in my congressional district, and also Washington State University, that I just want to share with the committee today. Both pointed to expanding the definition of what we define as a conservation job. And we've heard some of this today. For example, more conservation is happening in urban areas and touching on fields like engineering and sociology, urban studies, and agricultural sciences, often led by our wonderful land-grant universities like Washington State University, are really changing the way that conservation work is being done. Another key issue that they mentioned is that we need to expand training opportunities to allow people to transition into the workforce or learn new skills who are already in other jobs. And beyond engaging youth and college students, workforce development and worker retraining needs to include conservation. Mr. Crowder, I have a question for you. In your testimony, you noted several NACD efforts to bolster the conservation workforce pipeline. And I want to ask you, as this definition of a conservation worker is changing and expanding, what's happening on the ground in Washington State to recruit and train a diverse, skilled conservation workforce? And also, how are those efforts incorporating the need for expertise in urban agriculture and engineering and other areas that aren't necessarily thought of as conservation fields?
Thank you, Representative Schreier. Good to see you again. And it's great to be with self-proclaimed soil geeks and duck folks and nerds like that. I love being around folks like that. So I'm part of an organization, just like all my other witnesses. We love what we do. And I have to shout out to my partners in Washington State. Royleen comes at night. She's our state conservationist. Chris Pettit, executive director for Washington State Conservation Commission. You've got Tom Salzer with the executive director for WACD. So 20 years ago, conservation districts were primarily for agriculture and farming families. Now districts are more in suburban and urban areas. So we're transitioning. Our supervisors are transitioning. Our clients are transitioning into these more urban areas. NACD has given 25 urban technical assistance grants to Washington State for $1.1 million to 18 districts. And that includes your districts in Pierce, Thurston, and Snohomish counties. So a lot of technical assistance is going into that. Washington State Conservation Commission is bolstering regional engineering teams in the districts. Executive Director Pettit is looking to hire an ag engineer to steer the program. As you know, we have voluntary stewardship program in Washington. The legislature has appropriated $2.7 million a year for engineering, and we're working on the sustainable farms and fields. So much is going on at the local level to make sure that we have a broad representation and that we bring in those underrepresented, non-traditional supervisors and clients for our districts, and can't be happier with the work we're doing.
Thank you. And so in my 4 seconds, just for helping farmers manage extreme heat and prepare for those challenges in the future. Thanks for being here today. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schreier. The chair now recognizes Mr. Panetta for 5 minutes.
Outstanding. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks to all of our witnesses for being here. And thank you for being a part of this, what I believe, especially coming from the Central Coast here in California, is a very, very important topic. So I appreciate your time and your discussion today. I think clearly it's obviously very important and it's critical that we continue to talk about workforce development and all of the programs that are taking place, be it at the USDA or other conservation organizations that are out there. There's no doubt that these programs are vital to protecting our farmlands and developing effective conservation practices that have serious implications for Americans on and off the farm. And one of the many things that we're seeing, especially here in my district on the Central Coast, though, is that electronic enrollment platforms are really evolving and technology is becoming more and more accessible and prevalent, which is a good thing. That's one of the reasons why it's critical for the Nrcs to be ready to deliver technical assistance to private landowners working to implement or design conservation programs. Now, please know and realize that many of my colleagues and I are committed to investing in essential technical experts, especially when it comes to working with the 2023 Farm Bill. It's going to take a wide range of solutions. I think we understand that when it comes to executing our conservation goals and bringing in the federal dollars to our rural communities, our farmers, and our ranchers who are working hard to implement conservation programs on their own lands. But we can also do this as we better manage our forests too, from the increasing threats of wildfires that we see out here on the Central Coast. And that's why I introduced the Save Our Forest Act, the bill that would help deal with the staffing shortages in national forests and grasslands and provide for natural resource managers and other conservation experts. Now, as we look to protect our environment, farmers have a big role to play, but so does our government. And I think we understand that, and that's why we're having this important hearing. We got to make sure that we provide the resources and the critical support to our farmers, to our ranchers, to our foresters, and all those impacted by the threats of climate change and environmental degradation. Now, on another note, it's important that we train the next generation of the conservation workforce. That's why in December, I co-founded with another Ag Committee member, the bipartisan Congressional FFA Caucus to help fund FFA and other similar organizations through the Carl D. Perkins Vocational and Technical Education Act. Our Blue Jackets do more than just raise livestock. We know that. FFA is training the future of the conservation workforce across all spectrums of the agricultural industry, from hard sciences to STEM career pathways and the natural resource planning and conservation that's so important to us. And then providing obviously those public speaking skills and critical thinking skills and also community engagement, which is important. So I want to hit on Ms. Shore, if I could. In your testimony, you mentioned that the education that you received through your FFA experience and high school agricultural educational classes really laid the foundation for your career. Do me a favor and speak more to your experience as a member of FFA and how it impacted your journey to the seat that you're sitting in today. And also, how can we in Congress ensure that urban and suburban students have more access to these types of programs, which can really, to be frank, enlighten them to the work that our farmers and our foresters are doing?
So I'll switch those up a little bit. Thank you for that question. So I think the first one, how do we get more urban people involved? Is one of them is just getting more ag in urban classrooms. And so I think what's really exciting about a lot of the FFA courses now, I have a lot of friends that decided to go back into ag teaching. Most of their classes actually cross count for college education. And so I think that is really exciting, is that they're dual options in enrollment. And so how did FFA really inspire me? So sitting in Mr. Littleton and Mr. Rissa's classrooms, that's where I started learning about invasive weeds and plant ID and how do you manage those weeds using the whole toolbox with integrated management, with grazing or herbicide use. I learned about genetics, and one of the research projects I'm working right now with the Forest Service on and colleagues at University of Arizona is actually GPS tracking cattle and looking at their DNA to see if they have genetic markers that make them hill climbers, so they can do a better job of managing our forests and the grasslands to reduce the threat of catastrophic fire. And so those lessons learned couple years ago in those classes really were an inspiration. And they got me out of Gridley to go experience the state, participate in national FFA conferences and contests around the country. So I am forever indebted to my ag teachers who gave up a lot of their weekends and evenings as amazing teachers to help me get where I am today.
Outstanding. And there, it's nothing too bad with staying in Gridley, but understand your point, especially being from the Central Coast rather than the Central Valley. But obviously looking forward to working with you and others from the Central Valley and all across our country to make sure that we support our conservation efforts. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
The chair now recognizes Mr. Correa, if he's there. Saw him on camera earlier. Mr. Correa, are you there? He is not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are.
Couldn't hit that button there, Madam Chair, and I want to thank all of you for holding this most important hearing and listening to your comments about constituents that have lawns. In my district, we have very few lawns. We have a lot of condominiums. We probably have one of the densest populations in the state of California. And the challenge is, as you've all put it, is how to get these young people to understand the value of agriculture, the outdoors, and trying to figure out how can we get that experience? How can we get some of these kids to go out and spend a week or two in the summer at Mr. Lamalfa's district, to know what it is to be a farmer, to grow some rice, to get an appreciation of good public policy when it comes to agriculture, because at the end of the day, public policy really is dependent on us as individuals knowing what the agriculture industry really needs and the environmental challenges that we have. So I guess my question, thought, comment, if I would elicit a comment from from the folks here as our guests, is how do we get our kids to go out in the outdoors and spend a few weeks out there, student exchange, summer exchange, get them out there, roll up their sleeves and do some good work. Thank you very much. Comment, question?
So I'll answer that really quick. I just brought to my mind an opportunity that we have in California is actually as a sixth grader in our very rural agricultural community, they send every sixth grader for a week to an outdoor environmental camp. And so we go camping, learn about forestry and forest health. We are there learning about where our food comes also, but the bugs and the trees and the water system. And so I think that was something also, I had great experiences in both 4-H and FFA, but that week long of being there, I know inspired some of my classmates to choose careers to go back into teaching and education, and found inspiration in that week. And that is a program that is still continuing on to this day in our community.
I think I need that program too. When I was in the state Senate with Mr. Lamalfa, I think I spent a weekend out in Shasta County out in the forest and got a heck of an appreciation for the forestry, the lumber industry, and ag. What I learned, though, trying to figure out how we bring back that kind of experience to our inner city youth, get them out. So any ideas how to multiply those kind of experiences? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Chair, for holding this hearing.
Representative Cora, we all love to brag on what we know. And my local conservation districts, the Benton and Franklin conservation districts, we have programs like Salmon in the Classroom, and we reach 4,500 students and 22 schools in our local district. We have Wheat Week that we talk about wheat with the help of the Washington Grain Commission, and we teach them about farming and drain rangers and sand. There's so much that we can do just to get folks outside and then find those ones that are interested and love that. And then let's find mentors to do that. We have lots of programs at NACD, but we got to get the kids interested and then mentor them to get them outside and into conservation careers.
Thank you.
I'll pipe in just quickly. Here in New Jersey, most sixth graders are going to go away for a few days into the forest. We do have forested places here in New Jersey. I swear we do. And they spend the 3 days just working with each other in team building, but they also are there. They'll do water quality testing. They'll do all kinds of little conservation activities and enjoy themselves. So that's one small step. But I also think there's a ton of programs out there that it has to be the message about those programs needs to get to the right people. And so if it's getting to the teacher, getting to a science supervisor at a school district to get the word out to the students, and I think we can get the kids out there, especially for, as you mentioned, Representative Correa's, and especially our kids that are in the city. They need to know that they can get out and that there's tons of activities out there for them. Or opportunities out there for them to try.
Thank you. Just one last comment for you. 2 weeks ago, my staffers went out to visit an urban garden in my district. 1,200 square feet. Thank you very much. With that, Madam Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, before we adjourn today, I invite Ranking Member LaMalfa to share any closing comments that he may have.
To get that technology turned on. Well, Madam Chairman, I appreciate again the opportunity to talk about how we do need to stock up our ability to get people to join in the outdoors. Appreciate my colleague Mr. Correa's comments on the enlightenment he got from being here in Northern California and the great efforts our forest industry will do to bring people. And so let's lean on that some more, and because I think most people love the great outdoors, and what could be better than a job in them, helping to manage our resources, whether it's for water, for wildlife, for better forest management, so we don't burn 1 million acres every year with a lousy air quality and all the things that go with it. So I'd like that we can help move this in this direction and incorporate some of these things into the Farm Bill. Tracy's comments on more flexibility required, please talk to us and help us put that on paper, put it into action and make these work just a little bit better. I think there's a certain willingness to have these various programs that we've talked about for conservation, and we've had great success by and large, and we just need to keep expanding and keep making sure there's no barriers for their success. So with that, Madam Chair, thank you again, and I will yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaMalfa. And in closing, I again want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today. Certainly, I think that the whole committee is in agreement that truly technical assistance is incredibly important, be it at NRCS helping out in our communities, but that the pipelines that are utilized to get us to this tremendous resource across our communities is incredibly important. I truly appreciated Mr. O'Neill's comments related to following up specifically on Dr. Holzer's comments related to middle schoolers and recognizing, at times we do a lot of work perhaps in career and technical programs and community colleges, land grant universities, but sometimes it's just planting that seed at the middle school age. And we've heard about a couple different state specific programs where students even recognize that this is an option, that this is a career path, being in the outdoors, focusing on conservation, that's an option they could even pursue. Certainly I've been working on trying to ensure that we're appropriating more funding but I want to thank you for the tremendous insight that you all have provided into your work, your emphasis on how important it is to have a well-trained conservation workforce, that works closely with producers and foresters to achieve desired resource conservation on their lands, I think is a clear point that you all have made through your answers to our questions today. The thoughts that you've shared will certainly enable us to develop policies that will help improve today's conservation workforce and build a sustainable pipeline of employees. Certainly your written testimony is valuable. I'm grateful for the questions that you answered today, but certainly your written testimony is particularly valuable as we're spending time really thinking towards that 2023 Farm Bill. And across the country, when we're looking at how is it that we administer and deliver successful and meaningful conservation programs, especially when some of them have grown increasingly complex over the years, your thoughts have, I think, been very helpful to us. Certainly the forces acting on our soil, our water, our air are becoming more extreme, and we are seeing more frequent and intense impacts as a result of the climate crisis, frequent storms, flooding, extreme weather, hurricanes in the Southeast, extreme weather variations, fluctuations, and of course, historic wildfires in the West and notably in Mr. LaMalfa's district and region and state. Certainly these changes further underscore the need for greater investment in our conservation workforce and the challenges facing them. But it's not just about the workforce, it's not just about the conservation, it's truly about creating jobs into the future where people are focused on the health of a community, the agricultural and economic drivers of a community. So I truly appreciate the varying different viewpoints, though everyone's in general agreement, but the different perspectives to this conversation today. So hopefully, as we look towards the 2023 Farm Bill, I look forward to all of the committee members working together to focus on opportunities to grow our workforce and really ensure that producers have the support that they need to implement on-farm conservation programs, and that the future in our schools, elementary, middle, high school, and on up, recognize the incredible breadth and opportunity that exists in these fields. So again, I thank you so much for your time. And under the rules of the committee, the record of today's hearing will remain open for 10 calendar days to receive additional material and supplemental written responses from the witnesses to any question posed by a member. This hearing of the Subcommittee on Conservation and Forestry is adjourned.